Business meeting.
Call to order. Hello, everyone. I'm Kamraun.
And I'm Billy. Welcome to the HorseFrog podcast, home of your two favorite professional digressors.
Today, we will be discussing Book 2, Chapter 8 of Deadhouse Gates, a novel in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. This is part 3 of our coverage of this chapter.
This podcast series is intended to be a companion to reading or listening to the books set in the Malazan universe. It's not a book review, and it is most definitely not intended to be a replacement to reading the books. Know that Kamraun and I know that this series is the best fantasy stories ever written, and we are approaching this from a purely fanboy point of view. And there's not going to be much literary critique, at least not about this series. Just pure love, baby.
We will be covering the events of the books in a linear fashion. There will be spoilers for those that have not read the books. We will try not to spoil anything prior to us covering that portion of the respective book.
Now, quick warning, today's episode contains scenes of sorcerous violence, coarse skating, and otherwise, so today's episode is not recommended for children.
Our show is listener supported. If you would like to support us, we would really appreciate it. You can do so by visiting our Patreon link on our website at horsefrogproductions.com. Currently, we are posting ad-free episodes on Patreon weekly.
Also, we would really like to hear from you, so send any feedback or comments to contact@horsefrogproductions.com.
All right, Chapter 8, Part 3. We pick up where we left off on the Solanda. Culp emerged on the main deck and again glanced at the whistle. He grunted. It was alive with sorcery now. He thought, the breath of Odotarl's in that cabin. No wonder their sorcery couldn't defend them. Back to that point on the importance of the details in the captain's cabin. Lots of hints are being dropped here that will be relevant in the future.
Yes.
Yeah, specifically the size of the spear. Culp went on and on about how it was too big to be a Barghast spear. We learned of the Tist Edur a little bit during that, and there was maps of continents that Culp didn't recognize, all that stuff. And now we're finding out that Odotarl has been in there that dampened their magic, so it couldn't protect them.
And I think this speaks a lot to the size of the world that people, I would think, would kind of be in the know. Someone that's pretty well traveled like Culp, and maybe even Stormy and Truth and Gessler and these fellas, Bowden and whatever. I mean, that they don't, they're seeing these are bigger lands. I think these people have had access to maps before, and these seem to be new lands to them. So I think this kind of reinforces what we've talked about, how enormous this world actually is, why it's probably a lot larger than an Earth type planet, I think.
Yeah. And it made Culp realize how the Malazan Empire thought it was so big, but it really is not as big as they thought.
Yeah.
Culp looked around. Stormy was at the prow with his crossbow. Bodden stood near him, cradling his bandaged hand. Felicin leaned against the railing near the mainmast, arms crossed, appallingly cool given the proximity to the pyramid of severed heads. Hebrick wasn't visible. Gessler approached Culp and said, Truth is heading up to the crow's nest. You got the whistle? Culp tossed it over and asked, chosen a course yet? Gessler said, Truth will see what he sees, then we'll decide. 5 breaths later, Truth clambered into the crow's nest and vanished from sight. Truth exclaimed, Feiner's hoof, which caught everyone's attention. Gessler bellowed, Truth! Truth said, 3 pegs to port, storm sails. Gessler and Culp rushed to the starboard railing and saw a smudge marred the formless horizon, flickering with lightning. Culp hissed, that hood-damned wizards followed us. Gessler spun around and bellowed, Stormy, check what's left of these sails. Without pause, he put the whistle to his lips and blew. The sound was a chorus of voices, keening tonelessly. It chilled the air. The wail of souls twisted past torture, transforming pain into sound, fading with reluctance as Gessler pulled the whistle away. Man, when I was reading that, the hairs stood up on the back of my neck, imagining what it would be like to hear this.
Oh, yeah, that's a horrific... I have an image also. This is from that series I think I've mentioned before. I know I've mentioned about Elric, part of the Eternal Champion. His race, they are so sadistic and they are not humans. And they like to enslave humans. And part of the humans, what they would do is they'd surgically alter their vocal cords to just one pitch. And then they would torture them to produce musical tones to get their music. Man. Was these people screaming, and they can only scream at precise tones.
It sounds again like another one of those Hannibal episodes.
Yes, it does.
That one that impacted me so deeply.
It's the String Maker, right?
The String Maker episode, yes. I mean, you watch the first 3 minutes of that episode, that image is seared in my mind.
Oh, yeah, that's horrific. And I can imagine that, especially when he plays it, you're like, oh my gosh, what is the matter with that boy?
Spoiler alert, I'm just going to skip ahead a couple minutes. I'm just going to describe this scene for everybody that hasn't seen the Hannibal show. There is a crime scene where Will is called in. He's the profiler that the FBI is using his services to find out about serial killers in the area. Whenever there's a case, they call him in to try to do a psychological profile on them. So Will walks into this theater and there's a person sitting in a chair and they have, I think it's the neck of a cello down their throat, and their throat has been opened and their vocal cords have been exposed. Will goes into this thing that he does where he visualizes what happened, and it shows the serial killer playing the vocal cords of this person in situ. So they're still in the person, the neck is behind it, and so like he's playing, and just the noise it makes. I mean, that's one of those things that really sticks with you when you see it. And this bone whistle just really echoed that imagery for me. Thinking about what these tortured souls, the noise they would be making, and collecting that all into the sound that's coming out of this whistle is just horrific.
It is.
Wood thumped on either side as oars were readied. Hebrick stumbled from the hold hatch, his tattoos glowing like phosphor. His eyes wide as he swung to Gessler and said, "You've got your crew, Corporal." Felicin muttered, "Awake," and stepped away from the mainmast. Culp saw what she had seen. The severed heads had opened their eyes, swiveling to fix on Gessler as if driven by a single ghastly mechanism. When I read that, I was gritting my teeth. The eyes opening is just so bad. It's truly horrific.
Awful.
And between this and the noise the whistle made.
Yeah, because I've always imagined, of course, that's their tortured voices coming out of that whistle as they're being summoned from whatever. I got no idea. Summoned from nothingness to be
stasis, it seems like, doesn't it?
Yeah, and is that a mercy for them being in stasis? I guess stasis would be the mercy. I'm not sure. Can you destroy them and put them in? But right now, we need somebody that can row this boat. I'm sorry, these fellows are going to have to be labor here for a little bit longer.
Man, I hope they're not sentient.
Oh,
I hope their mind isn't functioning.
I know what that would be.
And they're just trapped in this eternal prison.
That'd be awful, dude. That's like being a zombie, dude. Zombie slave labor.
Worse, because zombies are mindless generally, right? They're just driven by their need to eat. Whereas if you still have your cognition, but you're trapped, your head. Oh,
dude, what's funny? It's like
I don't want to think about it too much.
I'm going to bring up a great comic book called Nexus. Nexus is a fusion caster. He's able to channel the power of a star. But there is renegade fusion casters, and what they do is they'll capture hundreds of thousands of sentient life forms, those slavers, and they'll behead them. And the heads are still alive, and they keep them alive to focus the fusion to the fusion casters. And so when this guy Nexus, when Nexus frees some other fusion head, these heads have formed their own world, the head world. It's great, dude. Nexus is a fantastic comic. But for some reason, I have the heads in those jars. It's kind of, it's the heads, but they're alive though. They're alive and telepathic kind of deal.
Sounds kind of like the Cymex from Dune.
Kind of does.
They had their brains removed, and they were in those contraptions.
You and I admitted we wished to be them at some point. Didn't we?
A younger me might have said yes.
Yeah, I think so. I
don't know.
Think me too.
I don't know now.
No, not now, but yeah.
I like exercise too much. I don't know if I'd want to be around without a body to move around.
Yeah, I get that. Wait till you get older. Wait till you get really old, then have them put the brain in the jar. Then, when you can't exercise, then you can have a great mech body or something. Because those guys were great in that prequel. That was not the only great stuff of that prequel stuff. It's the Cymex. I love those guys.
Well, yeah, they were interesting bunch.
Like, the beginning of the Guild.
I'm trying to think of what else I enjoyed from that. The beginnings of the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood was pretty cool.
The Guild and the Bene Gesserit. There's supposed to be a Bene Gesserit show coming to Max. I don't know if you've heard this or not, but
depending on who is directing it, could be good, could be mid.
I'm assuming rather the latter until I see it.
I don't know. Max has done some really good stuff. Yeah. Succession's an amazing show.
Okay. That's Brian Cox, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Say no more. I need to watch it because of that alone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still mad he's not.
Yeah, it's a really good drama.
I'm still mad he's not Hannibal Lecter more than Manhunter.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony Hopkins is my Hannibal Lecter.
Is he?
What can I say?
See, I saw Manhunter first.
I saw Silence of the Lambs before anything else. It's like a duck. He imprinted on you
Yeah,
as your
yeah.
Hannibal.
He's my Hannibal Lecter, dude. Now I do like Mads Mikkelsen. I freaking love that guy. As I think
I mean, but he's good in whatever he does.
he's
I don't know that I've seen him in a role I didn't like.
yeah. Agreed. Agreed. Now, if I had to be in this scenario, though, the only other person I could think of that I would necessarily want to be there would be Quick Ben
Mm-hmm.
because he could help with the fine details. But other than this is a pretty strong away team here.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just kind of just giving the props out to the team here, for what they were into. I mean, they've just discovered this ship of the dead that ain't quite dead yet when you blow the whistle. So, dude, this is horrific, and yet they're just kind of like, okay, this guy's coming after us. We need to keep going. So
Mm-hmm.
I know I need everyone to collect themselves. Okay, I know we've seen a lot of horrible stuff right now, but we're just getting started. We need to get out of here.
Yeah. It's kind of the pragmatic view on, okay, this is horrific, but we need to survive the situation. So let's get moving.
Yeah. So it's a pretty strong away team they've got here, I think. So
Right. Gessler seemed to flinch. Then he shook it off and said, could have used one of these when I was a drill sergeant. He had a tight grin on his face. And that's that gallows humor that we're talking about.
It's good stuff.
Hebrick peered into the rower's pit and said, your drummer's ready down below. Stormy said, forget the sails, rotted through. Gessler ordered, man the steering oar. 3 pegs to port. We can't do nothing but run. He raised the whistle again and blew a rapid sequence. The drum started booming in time. The oars swung, blades flipping from horizontal to vertical, then dipped down into the sluggish water and pulled. The ship groaned, crunching through the meniscus of crust that had clung to the hull. The Salanda lurched into motion and slowly eased round until the rapidly approaching storm cloud was directly astern. The oars pushed slimy water with relentless precision. I love the usage of meniscus here. I always think of its usage in human anatomy.
Yes.
It's just one of those words Erikson uses in a way I've never seen used in any of the books that I've read before.
Is it more nautically used?
I don't know.
With I don't read any series that happen on boats. In all honesty, there's more that happen on boats in this series than I've ever been in any series in my entire life because I don't read things that happen on ships. So I'm just kind of curious, but I do like his terminology being different here. It's a different thing. It's very evocative, I think.
It's a noun that's used in physics. So when I looked up the definition of it, it says it's the curved upper surface of a liquid in a tube. So that's the first definition. And then in anatomy, it's what we think of in the knee. It's a thin fibrous piece of cartilage.
Yes.
So I don't know that it's used nautically, but it definitely has some usage, just not common usage that I've heard outside of
more technical
anatomy, really. Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
But either way, I appreciated its use.
Oh, yeah, me too.
The kids were watching Frozen earlier, and when Elsa freezes up the fjord, I said, "Ooh, there's a meniscus of ice." So, like, I propagated its usage.
I'm going to propagate some usage here. Have you seen the ad for Napoleon?
I have.
I just saw that tonight, like right before this show.
What did you think of it?
I'm really excited. It's Ridley Scott. It's Joaquin Phoenix together again. I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, Joaquin Phoenix is a great actor.
Well, they showed a scene of these guys on a battlefield. I'm sorry, this is not spoiler. This is trailer, people. And if you think I'm spoiling something, jog on. I love you guys, but move along. It shows these people on the ice. They start slipping. They don't know it's ice. And they realize they're on ice when he starts shelling the ice and it's a lake they're on. Did he do that? If he did, that's absolutely brilliant. It's horrifying, but it's brilliant.
Yeah, I don't know. That is reminiscent of that King Arthur movie.
Okay.
You remember that?
I saw that, but it's been so long, Kamraun. I can't remember anything about that movie. I remember the general idea.
Clive Owen one?
Yes. I just kind of remember the general gist that he was a Roman slave, right? He was English.
Yeah, there was a scene where they were being chased down by an army and they go across this frozen lake, and then him and the knights go out there and they break up the lake. The big guy, I can't remember if it was Galahad, maybe. He has this huge maul, I think, and he just like breaks the ice, and then the whole army starts going in the lake. But it was reminiscent of that. Probably the Napoleon movie, if it's historically accurate, is maybe where they got the idea from originally.
That would be cool because Napoleon was pretty. Dude, let's give it up, dude. He was a pretty impressive fellow. I don't know much about him. I don't know enough.
Truly, I don't know a lot about his campaigns. I do know that they imprisoned him on the island and somehow he got out and then continued his rampage.
Yeah, that's what I
So, I mean,
know.
he's a pretty
It's like that
formidable
gum.
individual.
Yeah, it's like that gum, and almost did it twice. It's like that gum. It's like
Hmm.
so. Yeah, very formidable. I'm looking forward to it.
Gessler looped the whistle's thong around his neck and said, "Wouldn't the old emperor have loved this old lady, Culp, eh?" Culp said, "Your excitement's nauseating, Corporal." Gessler barked a laugh. The twin banks of oars lifted the Salanda into a ramming pace and stayed there. The cadence of the drum was a too swift heartbeat. It reverberated in Culp's bones with a resonance that etched his nerves with pain. He did not need to descend into the pit to affirm his vision of that thick-muscled, headless corpse pounding the gourds against the skin, the relentless heave and pull of the rowers, the searing play of hood-bound sorcery in the stifling atmosphere. His eyes went to Gessler and found him standing at the stern castle alongside Stormy. These were hard men, harder than he could fathom. They'd taken the grim black humor of the soldier further than he thought possible, cold as the sunless core of a glacier. Bloody-minded confidence, or fatalism. He thought, never knew Fëanor's bristles could be so black. The mad sorcerer's storm still gained on them, slower than before, yet an undeniable threat nonetheless. Culp strode to Hebrick's side and asked, "Is this your god's warren?" Hebrick scowled, "Not my god, not his warren. Hood knows where in the abyss we are, and it seems there's no easy wakening from this nightmare." Culp said, "You drove the god-touched hand into Stormy's wound. This confirms our suspicion from last week."
Yeah.
Hebrick said, "Aye, nothing but chance. Could have as easily been the other one." Now, I thought it would have been intentional on his part. So I guess Stormy got lucky. He had a 50-50
Yeah.
chance, and
Yeah.
he got the right hand, apparently.
Yeah. Because I'm not sure, because Culp still saw something that it was akin to virulence pulsing out of him into him. Now, I don't ever see anything positive with that word virulence, but unless it's something positive, maybe it was just in the wildness that it went in there. Maybe what he was talking about. But yeah, it does. It's like, man, thank goodness it was that hand, not the other. I don't know what the other one would have done.
Culp asked, "What did you feel?" Hebrick shrugged and said, "Something passing through. You'd guessed as much, didn't you?" Culp nodded. Hebrick asked, "Was it Fëanor himself?" Culp said, "I don't know. I don't think so. I'm not an expert in matters religious. Doesn't seem to have affected Stormy, apart from the healing. I didn't know Fëanor granted such boons." Hebrick muttered, "He doesn't. Not without a price, anyway." Felicin sat apart from the others. Her closest company, the pyramid of staring heads, which didn't bother her much, since their attention remained on Gessler. She thought back to the round in Unta, to the priest of flies. That had been the first time sorcery had been visited upon her. Felicin had never before witnessed such forces. The witnessing of magic left scars, a feeling of overwhelming vulnerability in the face of something beyond one's control. It made the world suddenly fey, deadly, frightening, and bleak. That day in Unta had shifted her place in the world, or at least her sense of it, and she'd felt off balance ever since. Felicin thought, but maybe it wasn't that. Not that at all. Maybe it was what I lived through on the march to the galleys. Maybe it was that sea of faces, the storm of hate and mindless fury, of the freedom and hunger to deliver pain writ so plain in all those so very normal faces. Maybe it was the people that sent me reeling. So we're recording this on October 29th, 2023. And the attacks in Israel happened on October 7th, so a couple weeks ago. This last paragraph where Felicin is talking about walking through the round and seeing all that hate on people's faces. After these attacks from both sides online, it doesn't matter which side people are supporting, whether it's the Israelis or the Palestinians, there seems to be this thirst for people getting hurt and justification that the other side needs to pay in some way. And this quote really reminded me of just this anger that seems to be out there. And it's not one side or the other, it's both sides. You're seeing this from both factions.
Well, here's the thing, Kamraun. From my point of view, I'm very pro-Israel, but it's from a religious point of view. The stuff with the Palestinians, I have a lot of sympathy for these victims because there's a lot of victims in here that aren't Hamas. But, Hamas is not a great group, and they've been elected into power there. If elected is true, I'm not really sure how I feel if that was actually truly elected or not.
I don't know how free those elections are. Is it like the
Right,
dictator where you have a tank and
right.
there's two voting booths and it's like everybody's in the line for one
Yes.
because the tank's
See,
pointing at
that's my
you?
imagination, though. I have that. I don't think it's far off, but I don't think it's right. But like I say, what we here in the West have done is we forget we're not distinguishing between the three groups: the Israelis, the Palestinians, and Hamas, who happen to be terrorists. And I don't know enough about that stuff. What's going on is awful. Like I said, there's a lot of badness on both sides. you know, so I don't know what's going on today
Mhm.
or even yesterday.
When I was thinking about this is from the perspective of the people that are in the West,
Yes.
the Europeans and the Americans online. There's just so
Yes.
much vitriol that's just out there floating around. And people that you would think are generally civilized are advocating for innocent civilians to get hurt.
Yes. I would say people you and I know personally on Instagram that were people I've worked with in the past have posted some things I've been like, are you really going to post something like this? Are you comfortable? It's kind of vitriolic, and I was kind of shocked. Kind of casual, anti-Semitic stuff by somebody I'm like that I know. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I was like, wow. I was kind of blown away by that. That's when I started looking into it more because I was like, is this drummed up this much kind of stuff?
Yeah. Ultimately, it just reminds me that humans are humans.
Humans are pretty bad, dude.
Erikson has like a really good understanding of human nature by understanding anthropology and history. It feels like,
Dude, before the flood, if you're a believer and a Bible believer, dude, Cain murdered his brother. Dude, come on. First siblings. First siblings murdered one another. So we've been doing bad stuff to each other since first brothers.
yeah. All right. Felicin looked over at the severed heads. The eyes did not blink. They were drying, crackling like egg white splashed on hot cobblestones. She thought, like mine, too much has been seen. Far too much. If demons rose out of the waters around them right now, she would feel no shock. Only a wonder that they had taken so long to appear. And could you be swift in ending it all now? Please?
Yeah.
That's pretty messed up. And this kind of goes back to her casual disregard of the Pyramid of Heads. She's confirmed my suspicions that she's just getting desensitized to this type of horror.
Yeah. Well, this is going to happen when you're running around with a rough crowd. And this is a pretty rough crowd. And when you're stuck on Hood's Haunted Sea Ride, also, this is, at least you're in good company. When you're in, I guess, when you're in this horrible place, you're in good company in a horrible place. But she's not an optimist like myself. So,
Truth scrambled down from the rigging. He paused near her as he brushed dusty rope fibers from his clothes. He had a couple years on her, yet looked much younger to her eyes. She thought, unpocked, smooth skin, the wisps of beard, all too clear eyes, no gallons of wine, no clouds of Durhang smoke, no weighty bodies taking turns to push inside, into a place that had started out vulnerable, yet was soon walled off from anything real, anything that mattered. I only gave them the illusion of getting inside me, a dead-end pocket. Can you grasp what I'm talking about, Truth? And this makes me think about how lonely it can be if you're too afraid to risk letting people into your inner sanctum.
Oh, I agree. It can be a very lonely life if you don't let folks in.
Yeah, that fear of getting hurt, you block everybody out, but then nobody ever really knows you.
Yeah.
It does take some level of risk.
It does take a lot of risk to get to know somebody.
To let people in.
It does, but it's worth it. But you do, I know why people don't, because you don't want to open yourself up to being vulnerable. But usually payout's pretty good if you do.
For people that have been through a lot of traumatic experiences, I imagine it's really hard to get over some of that stuff and open up to people.
Oh, yeah. Especially her.
And then they can be really lonely.
Yeah. She's been so horribly misused. Oh, my good gracious. I can't imagine. She's so young. So I can't imagine how awful the world must look from her point of view.
Truth noted her attention and gave her a shy smile. He said, he's in the clouds. Felicin asked, who is? Truth said, the sorcerer. Like an untethered kite. This way and that, trailing streamers of blood. Felicin said, how poetic, Truth. Go back to being a Marine. Truth reddened and turned away. Bodden spoke from behind her. The lad's too good for you, and that's what makes you mean. Felicin sneered. What would you know? Bodden admitted, I can't scry you much, lass, but I can scry you some. Felicin said, so you'd like to believe. Let me know when that hand starts rotting. I want to be there when it's cut off. Just when I thought we were getting a little bit of growth from her after that introspection, she drags us back into the gutter.
Yeah, so disappointed, but not wholly unexpected from her.
The wind arrived like a gasping exhalation, and the sorcerer's storm was upon them. We go to Fiddler. Something ragged across his brow awoke him. He opened his eyes to a mass of bristle ends that suddenly lifted clear to reveal a wizened black face peering critically down. The face concluded its examination with an expression of distaste. It said, "Spiders in your beard, or worse. Can't see them, but I know they're there." He's brushing Fiddler's face with a broom to get the spiders off. He's a madman.
Plus, he's such a lunatic. He's powerful but squirrely. It's just, we'll learn how powerful in this chapter. But yeah.
Fiddler drew a deep breath and winced at the throbbing protest from his broken ribs. He growled, "Get away from me!" Stinging pain wrapped his thighs, reminders of the gouging claws that had raked them. His left ankle was heavily bandaged. The numbness from his foot was worrying. He truly got messed up in that engagement with the Soul Taken and Divers.
Yeah, then that thing said he crushed, that Soul Taken crushed his ankle, or one of them put his leg down.
I thought it was one of the horses stepped on him.
Oh, it's the horse. Okay. I
know
something.
It wasn't intentional.
Yes, it was not intentional. It just crushed his ankle, though. I know that.
Right.
And I knew that we had some ribs broken, but it's like, he got beat to pieces in that fight. He's lucky to be alive.
Absolutely. The old man said, "Can't. No escape is possible. Bargains were sealed. Arrangements made. The deck speaks plain in this. A life given for a life taken, and more besides." Fiddler said, "You're Dalhanese. Where am I?" The face split into a wide grin and said, "In shadow. Hee hee." A new voice spoke from behind, who we know to be Iskarol Pust. It said, "He wakens and you torment him, High Priest? Move aside. The soldier needs air, not heirs." Puss pulled back and retorted, "It's a matter of justice. Your tempered companion kneels before that altar, does he not? These details are vital to understanding." He took another step back as the massive form of the other speaker moved into view. Fiddler sighed. "Ah, the Trell. Memory returns. And your companion? The Jag?" Mappo said, "He entertains your companions. Feebly, I admit. For all his years, Ikariam has never mastered the social grace necessary to put others at ease." Fiddler said, "Ikariam, the Jag by that name. The maker of machines, the chaser of time." Mappo gave Fiddler a wry smile and said, "I, Lord of the Sand Grains, though that poetic allusion's lost on most and awkward besides." Fiddler said, "Mappo." Mappo said, "I again. And your friends name you Fiddler, relieving you of the guise of a Grawl horse warrior." Fiddler said, "Hardly matters that I awoke out of character then." Mappo said, "There's no punishment awaiting the lapse, soldier. Thirsty? Hungry?" Fiddler responded, "Good. Yes and yes. But first, where are we?" Mappo said, "In a temple carved into a cliff, out of the whirlwind. Guests of a high priest of shadow, whom you've met, Iskarol Pust." Fiddler asked, "Pust?" Mappo said, "Even so." Pust pushed into view again, scowling. "You mock my name, soldier?" Fiddler said, "Not I, high priest."
Smart answer.
Yes. Pust grunted, adjusted his grip on the broom, then scampered from the room. Fiddler sat up gingerly. He was tempted to ask Mappo for an assessment of the damage, especially his ankle, but decided to hold off hearing the likely bad news a while longer. He asked, "What's that man's story?" Mappo said, "I doubt even he knows." Fiddler said, "I awoke when he was sweeping my head." Mappo said, "Not surprising."
Sorry.
I love the way Mappo is kind of joking around here.
Yeah.
He's not really taking the situation that seriously.
He's pretty chill, dude. Mappo has always seemed super chill, and I've always liked him. And I always forget he's kind of like a big fellow, like a troll. Kind of. Isn't he built kind of like a troll? I mean, he's a big.
That's how I always interpreted it. You know, they talk about his thick mane and his spatulate fingers.
Yeah.
He's wide and muscly.
Yeah, but he seems so human because he's always so chill back, and he's able to put people at their ease, apparently.
There was an ease to Mappo's presence that relaxed Fiddler, until he recalled the warrior's name. Mappo, a name ever chained to another's, and enough rumors to fill a tome. If any were true, Fiddler said, Ikariam scared off the divers. Mappo said, his reputation carries weight. Fiddler asked, is it earned, Mappo? Even as he asked, Fiddler knew he should have bitten back the question. Mappo winced and withdrew slightly. He said, I shall get you food and drink then. Mappo left the small room, moving silently despite his considerable bulk, the combination raising an echo that brought Kalam to mind. Fiddler thought, Did you outrun the storm, old friend? Iskarl Pust eased back into the chamber and whispered, Why are you here? Do you know why? You don't, but I'll tell you. You and no one else. He leaned close, plucking at his spiral wisps of hair with both hands. He said, Tremorlore. Laughing at Fiddler's expression, he spun about in wild, capering steps before settling once more in front of Fiddler, their faces inches apart. He said, The rumor of a path, a way home. A small wriggling worm of a rumor, even less, a grub, smaller than a nail clipping. The compacted and knotted mess wrapped around something that might be a truth. Or not. Hee hee. Fiddler had had enough. Grimacing through the pain, he grabbed the man's collar and shook. Spittle struck his face. The high priest's eyes rolled about like marbles in a cup. Is this the second or third time this book that Puss has been throttled by someone?
I think it's the second.
The second time? The first one was Ikariam?
I think so.
Okay.
Yes. I know Mappo wants to throttle him, but I don't he has not yet.
Puss managed to say, What? Again? Fiddler pushed him away.
I guess that's your answer. Is that your answer twice?
Yeah, I guess so.
That's twice.
Yeah.
So
Puss staggered, righted himself, and made a show of reassembling his dignity. He said, A concurrence of reactions, too long out of social engagements and the like, must examine my manners, and more, my personality. He cocked his head and continued, Honest, forthright, amusing, gentle and impressive integrity. Well, where's the problem then? Soldiers are crude, callow and thick, distempered. Do you know the chain of dogs? Man, what a roller coaster it is interacting with this guy.
yeah. And it's the way it's how he lulls people with that odd meandering thing. Is that to get their guard down?
In this particular case, immediately before, I think he was part of that was inner monologue that he doesn't know people are hearing.
Yes, I do agree with some of that.
Yeah. So part of it is he's thinking to himself, and then maybe that's the switching back and forth.
Maybe so. Maybe what it is.
Fiddler started, blinked as if shaken from a trance. He asked, What? Puss continued, It's begun, though not yet known. Anabar Thylend, chain of dogs in the Malazan tongue. Soldiers have no imaginations, meaning they're capable of vast surprises. There are some things even the whirlwind cannot sweep aside. Mappo returned bearing a tray. He said, Harassing our guest again, Iskarl Pust? Puss muttered, Shadow-born prophecies, as he eyed Fiddler with cool appraisal. He went on, The gutter under the flood, raising ripples on the plunging surface. A river of blood, the flow of words from a hidden heart. All things sundered, spiders in every crook and corner. He whirled about, then stamped out of the room. Mappo stared after him. Fiddler said, Pay him no heed, right? Mappo swung around, his heavy brows lifted. He said, Hood no. Pay that man every heed, Fiddler. Fiddler said, I was afraid you'd say that. He mentioned Tremorlore. He knows. Mappo said, He knows what even your companions don't, as he carried the tray to Fiddler. He went on, You seek the fabled Azath house, out in the desert, somewhere. Fiddler thought, Aye, and the gate Quickbend swears it holds. Fiddler asked, And you? What has brought you to Raraku? Mappo said, I follow Ikariam, a search without end. Fiddler asked, And you've devoted your life to helping him in his search? Mappo sighed no, then whispered without meeting Fiddler's gaze, I seek to keep it endless. Here, break your fast. You've been unconscious for 2 days. Your friends are restless with questions, eager to speak with you. And that's an important admission from Mappo to someone he barely knows, no less.
I know it. Sometimes it is easier to tell someone that you don't know certain things.
Yeah, they don't know enough to judge you, I guess. Maybe.
Yeah, that could be. Sometimes you just got to tell somebody. And he's been doing this for what I'm assuming is quite a long time.
At least 800 years, I think.
Yeah. That's a considerable amount of time.
Yeah. Fiddler said, I suppose I've no choice. I'd better answer those questions. Mappo said, Aye, and once you've mended some, we can begin our journey. He smiled cautiously and finished, to find Tremorlore. Fiddler frowned. He said, Mended, you said. My ankle was crushed. I can barely feel a thing beyond my knee. Seems likely you'll have to cut that foot off. Mappo said, I've some experience in healing. This temple once specialized in such alchemies, and the nuns left much behind. And, oddly enough, Iskarl Pust seems to show some talent as well, though one has to keep an eye on him. His wits scatter sometimes, and he confuses elixirs with poisons.
Loved it.
He did have a thing when he was talking to Mappo and Ikariam earlier in the book where he was naming poisons, wasn't he?
Yes, he was talking about Traub and some other things, and he's like, wait a minute, those are poisons.
Yeah.
Like Mad Bow's like, hey, wait. What's your voices, dude?
Fiddler's eyes narrowed. He said, he's an avatar of Shadow Throne, or the Rope, Cotillion, the patron of assassins. There's little difference between the two. Mappo shrugged and said, the art of assassination requires a complementary knowledge of healing. Two sides to the same alchemical coin. In any case, he actually did surgery on your ankle. Fear not, I observed. And, I admit, learned much. Essentially, the high priest rebuilt your ankle. Using an unguent, he sealed the fragments. I've never before seen the like. Thus you will heal, and quickly. That must have been quite a scene to witness.
Yeah. Sounds like microsurgery Buzz was doing on this guy's ankle.
Yeah, really impressive.
Yeah, really. It was quite impressive. And when I laugh because of the unguent.
Mm-hmm. The sacred unguent.
Remember Fargo? Well, I think of Fargo. It's Peter Stormare, the big, tall, blonde German fella.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen the movie Fargo, right? When they kidnap the woman?
Yes.
When they go to kidnap her, he gets scratched or something, and he's going, unguents. I need something for. So they're digging through the cabinet for unguents when they've lost her, and then they find her again in the restroom, actually, because he's looking for unguents.
What a messed up movie. Talk about dark humor.
Movie that is. Yeah.
Fiddler said, a pair of hands devoted to shadow poked around under my skin. Hood's breath. Mappo said, it was that or lose your foot. You had a punctured lung as well, beyond my skills that. But the high priest contrived to drain your lung of blood, then made you breathe a healing vapor. You owe Iskarl Pust your life. Fiddler muttered, precisely my point. Man, Pust did a lot for Fiddler here, surprisingly so.
I'm going to ask this because I just now thought about this. Did Shadow Throne / Kellenvad send Pust to help out Fiddler? Out of loyalty, maybe?
I don't know.
I've never thought of that before. I don't know why, because he's an agent of Shadow, so therefore he's working for a guy that Fiddler used to work for. And it was like, I'm just kind of, I don't know if that's I'm just kind of curious if you ever thought about that or not. I had not ever thought about that.
I'm running it through in my head. I'm trying to think whether it would make more sense for Shadow Throne or Cotillion to be involved here.
Yeah, but they just said something that was very interesting right about here, where he said Shadow Throne or the Rope, Cotillion. Mm-hmm. There's a little difference between the two, but we know that there is.
From their perspective.
Yeah, that's true.
They don't know them that well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. They don't know them that well. I was just kind of curious if it was just, I never thought about it before, or it was just pure luck that Fiddler was out there and that they were out there, or if because Pust knows a lot. That name drop of that chain of dogs is kind of eerie.
Right. The shadow agents are on the continent getting information out.
Yeah, they are. And they're laying down a good trail. I'll stop. I'll hush.
That's a good question, though. Why Pust is helping Fiddler so much here?
Yeah, because there's nothing to be gained from him. We also have Absalar here, which she was possessed by the Avatar. So
okay. There were voices outside, then Absalar appeared in the doorway with Crocus behind her. The 2 days out of the desiccating storm had done much to revive both of them. They entered and Crocus rushed past Absalar to kneel by Fiddler's bed, then hissed, "We have to get out of here." Fiddler glanced at Mappo, noted his wry smile as he slowly backed away, then said, "Calm down, lad. What's the problem?" Crocus said, "The high priest. He's of the shadow cult, Fiddler. Don't you see? Absalar." Something cold slithered along Fiddler's bones. He whispered, "Oh, damn. I see your point." He looked up as Absalar stepped to the foot of the bed and spoke in a low tone. "Your mind still your own, lass?" Absalar shrugged and said, "The little man treats me well." Crocus sputtered, "Well? Like the prodigal returned, you mean? What's to stop Cotillion from possessing you all over again?" From the doorway, Ikariam said, "You need only ask his servant." He stood leaning, arms crossed, against the frame. His slitted gray eyes were fixed on the room's far corner. From the gloom of the shadows, a figure took shape. Iskarl Pust, seated on a strangely wrought chair, squirmed and flung a glare at Ikariam. He exclaimed, "I was to remain unseen, fool. What gift shadows when you so clearly divine what they hide? Pah! I am undone." Ikariam's thin lips quirked slightly. He said, "Why not give them answer, Iskarl Pust? Put them at ease." Pust said, "Put them at ease? What value that? I must think. At ease. Relaxed. Unmindful of restraint. Careless. Yes, of course. Excellent idea." He paused and swung his head to Fiddler. Fiddler watched a smile slide aboard the wizened man's face, oiled and smooth and pathetically insincere. Pust purred, "Everything's fine, my friends. Be calm. Cotillion is done with possessing the lass. The bane of Andromander Rake's threat remains. Who wants that crude conveyor of uncivilized mayhem crashing through the temple door? Not Shadow Throne, not the patron of assassins. She is protected still. Besides which, Cotillion finds no further value in using her, and indeed the residue of his talent still within her gives cause for secret concern. Puss' face twisted on itself, and he said, "No, better keep that thought unspoken." He smiled again and continued, "Cultured conversation has been rediscovered and used with guile and grace. Look upon them, Iskarl Pust. They are won over, one and all." There was a long silence.
Oh my good gracious. This reminds me of a comic book that made to an animated series. Have you ever seen the Max?
No.
Max was an Image comic, and this is a real big bruiser type, big car, but he's super strong, but he's always hanging out like on this tundra or out in this like savannah with this woman who's like a princess of the savannah. And then when he's getting done with these wild adventures, he's like a wino in the alley. But he still looks like he's in his costume and everything, and he always speaks his thoughts aloud. And you only are aware that he's speaking the thoughts aloud because people are screaming at him from their building, "Shut up down there!" So he talks to himself very loudly, very much like this.
Oh wow, I have to look that up. That sounds kind of interesting.
It's an interesting. They made it in the '90s, so I think it was made for MTV initially.
Okay.
So it was one of their better animated shows, like The Brain. Was it The Brain? Was that what that was? And there was some other crazy good animated stuff there, like Aeon Flux, the animated series. Some of the weirdest, that's some of the greatest anime still. Yeah, that's a really funny one. It's very intriguing. I think you can find it pretty easily, but it's going to be, it's not been HD'd. It's going to be an SD quality,
okay, gotcha.
A low def quality. But it's worth watching. It's good.
Mappo cleared his throat and said, "The high priest rarely has company." Fiddler sighed, suddenly exhausted. He leaned back and closed his eyes. He asked, "My horse, did it live?" Crocus said, "Yes, it's been taken care of, as have the others, those that Mappo had time to tend to, that is. And there's a servant here somewhere. We haven't seen him, but he does good work." That magnificent beast lives. That's very exciting.
As I sit there and say that, my hand is in the air because it lives to maul some other poor sap's face that gives lip to Fiddler in the future. So...
Was it Fiddler or the horse that was insulted?
That's a good question.
Can't remember.
I can't remember. It does not take kindly to insult, period.
Right.
Whether to Fiddler or to himself, we'll discover that. But it's like, it doesn't matter. I would not give this horse anything, but I would stay far away from him.
Right. Her is a female.
I'm glad she's alive, though. I was real glad she was alive.
Apslar said, "Fiddler, tell us about Tremorlore." A new tension filled the air. Fiddler sensed it even as sleep pulled at him. After a moment, he pushed it away with another sigh and opened his eyes. He said, "Quickben's knowledge of the Holy Desert is, vast. When we last rode the Holy Desert, as we rode out, in fact, he spoke of the vanished roads, like the one we found, an ancient road that sleeps beneath the sands and appears only occasionally, if the winds are right, that is. Well, one of those roads leads to Tremorlore." Crocus cut in, "Which is," Fiddler said, "a house of the Azath." Crocus asked, "Like the one that arose in Darujistan?" Fiddler said, "Aye. Such buildings exist, or are rumored to exist, on virtually every continent. No one knows their purpose, though it does seem that they are a lodestone to power. There's the old story that the Emperor and Dancer," he thought to himself, "Oh, Hood. Kellanved and Dancer, Amanus and Cotillion. The possible linkage with Shadow. This temple." Fiddler shot Iskarl Pust a sharp look. Pust sported an avid grin, his eyes glittering. Fiddler continued, "The legend goes that Kellanved and Dancer once occupied one such house in Malaz City." Ikariam said, "Deadhouse. The legend is true." Fiddler muttered, "Aye, well enough. In any case, it's Quickben's belief that such houses are all linked to one another, via gates of some sort, and that travel between them is possible, virtually instantaneous travel. That's a pretty important revelation there.
Big reveal. And is there a flaw in this law? Does Quick think he knows how to do this?
That's a good question, because he's not around here. So how is Fiddler supposed to utilize these gates if Quickben is wherever he is? Ikariam said, "Excuse me, I have not heard the name Quickben. Who is this man purporting to possess such arcane knowledge of the Azath?" Fiddler fidgeted under Ikariam's intent gaze, then scowled at himself and straightened slightly. He said, "A squad mage," then made it clear he did not intend to elaborate. Ikariam's eyes went oddly heavy, and he said, "You put much weight on a squad mage's opinions." Fiddler said, "Aye, I do." Crocus said, "You mean to find Tremorlore to use the gate to take us to Malaz City, to this Deadhouse, which would leave us—" Fiddler interrupted, "A half-day's sail from the Itko Khanese coast." His eyes met Apslar's eyes as he finished, "and home to your father." Mappo frowned as he asked, "Father, you now confuse me." Crocus explained, "We're delivering Apsalar back home, to her family. She was possessed by Cotillion, stolen away from her father, her life." Mappo asked, "Her life as what?" Crocus said, "A fisher girl." Mappo fell silent, but Fiddler thought he knew Mappo's unspoken thoughts. He thought, after what she's been through, she's going to settle for a life dragging nets? Apsalar said nothing. Puss shouted, "A life given for a life taken!" as he leapt from his chair and spun in place, both hands clenched in his tufts of hair. He went on, "Such patience is enough to drive one mad, but not me. Anchored to the currents of weathered stone, the trickling away of sand under the sun's glare, time stretching, immortal players in a timeless game. There is poetry in the pull of elements, you know. The jag understands. The jag seeks the secrets. He is stone, and the stone forgets. The stone is ever now, and in this lies the truth of the Azath. But wait, I've rambled on with such hidden thoughts and heard nothing of what is being said." Puss fell abruptly silent and subsided back into the chair. Ikariam's study of Puss could well have been something carved from stone. Fiddler's attention was being pulled every which way. Thoughts of sleep had long since vanished. He slowly said, "I'm not certain of these details, but I have the distinct feeling of being a marionette joining a vast and intricate dance. What's the pattern? Who clutches the strings?" All eyes swung to Iskarl Pust, who retained his fixed attentiveness a moment longer, then blinked. He said, "A question asked of modest me? Excuses and apologies admittedly insincere. Vast and intricate mind wanders on occasion. Your query?" Pust ducked his head as he smiled into the shadows. "Are they deceived? Subtle truths, vague hints, a chance choice of words in unmindful echo? They know not. Bask in their awe with all wide-eyed innocence. Oh, this is exquisite." Mappo said, "You've answered us eloquently." Puss said, "I have? This is unwell. Rather, how kind of me. You're welcome. I shall command servant to ready your party, then. A journey to fabled Tremorlore, where all truths shall converge with the clarity of unsheathed blades and unveiled fangs, where Ikariam shall find his long past. The once possessed fisher girl shall find what she does not yet know she seeks, where the lad shall find the price of becoming a man, or perhaps not, where the hapless Trell shall do whatever he must, and where a weary sapper shall at least receive his emperor's blessing. Oh yes, unless, of course, Tremorlore is not but a myth, and these quests nothing but hollow artifice." Pust, his finger against his lips, settled back in the strange chair. Shadows closed around him. A moment later, he and the chair vanished. Man, that's quite the image there. Him holding the finger up to his lips, and then he just goes into shadow and disappears.
I know it. He does these beautiful exits and entrances, but his rambling is just the funniest thing. But part of what he said a minute ago, he just said something that may have, I'm not sure, did it hammer it home maybe that Cotillion was doing something, or not Cotillion, but maybe that Shadow was helping Fiddler?
The comment, "A weary sapper shall at least receive his emperor's blessing."
Yeah.
Interesting.
Very interesting. That's a very interesting statement there.
Mm-hmm. Kind of makes you wonder how Shadowthrone feels about the people that were there originally, the old guard.
Yeah, it makes me feel that there's loyalty there.
Remember, Fiddler's a bridge burner, and they were his chosen elites.
You know, this goes to something for me with the chosen elites. Being a Bible reader, dude, King David had some really crazy chosen elites, dude. It lists them and some of their stuff that they've done. And it's kind of like I think about those, and I think about his love for his men, especially these certain 30. There was the 3, and then there was the 30 who did not attain to the 3, but they were looked upon by the 3 as worthy, kind of thing. It was just, there was this great love and camaraderie with this group of men that were his inner circle, and they were some mighty warriors. So I kind of got, for some reason, I just have this vibe there that I don't know why I feel like there's this. I think that the emperor has some love for these definitely for his inner circle, but I think he liked his elites very much.
Mm.
There were more than just numbers.
What are some examples of stuff that these elites that David had did?
Some of them were like, one of them single-handedly killed 300 men with a spear. Another one was this same guy goes down into a pit on a snowy day and kills a lion. And as one preacher says, I can't even get some folks to come to church when it's snowy, or when it's raining out there, let alone this guy goes down into a pit and kills a lion. And some of these things where they just, David, one time, my favorite one is that he mentions when he's on the road from Saul, King Saul, at this time in his life, he mentions that, something about longingly wanting this water from this well. kind of, it'd be like if you live in a small town, you got a well water, you kind of got this, it's a taste of hometown. It's got a certain vibe to drinking this well water. David kind of makes this comment about, would that I could have some of that water right now. And these three fellas, they break through enemy lines and bring him this well water to drink. He won't drink it. He pours it out as a sacrifice to the Lord because he said, I can't put these men's lives. It'd be like pouring out drinking their blood. I can't do that. But thank you for this amazing gift from these three guys. So, yeah, amazing guys.
Okay.
It's quite legendary, really.
Fiddler found himself starting out of a vague, floating trance. He shook his head, rubbed his face, and glanced at the others, only to see they were reacting in similar ways, as if they had one and all been pulled into a subtle, seductive sorcery. Fiddler released a shaky breath and asked, "Can there be magic in mere words?" Ikariam answered, "Magic powerful enough to drive gods to their knees, soldier." That shows you just how powerful Puss truly is. Even Ikariam and Mappo are under his spell.
Yeah. What did he do to him?
You have to think that last paragraph that he was talking, it was all in some way weaving some type of spell that put them in a trance.
Yeah. But was the trance for him to leave, or was it so he could imprint them with some other mission or something? I mean, maybe he gave them directions they're unaware that they received.
It's almost like
I'm
a
just curious.
confounding spell.
Yeah.
They're asking pointed questions, and he just confounds them and disappears.
He confounds them and leaves. Withdraws into shadow, and they freak out. No, it's like, wait.
Mm-hmm. Crocus muttered, "We have to get out of here." This time, everyone nodded in agreement. That's a great ending to this chapter.
It is. Yeah. And what a great chapter, dude.
Yes.
What an insanely good chapter this one is, man.
Yeah. And I have a feeling it's going to continue on this path for a while, at least until the next book. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Just absolutely amazing chapter.
For standout moments, Gessler's usage of the whistle and the description of the reactions of the poor souls that are enslaved to it, specifically their eyes opening whenever the whistle was blown and looking at Gessler, and then the noise the bone whistle made.
Oh,
it sounded like their wails of agony. Craziness.
Yes. It's very hellish. It's got a hellish vibe from that of a chorus of wails of the damned kind of thing going on there.
Absolutely.
I'm imagining. Very awful, but everything you just mentioned right there, all such core memories of this series. As a matter of fact, the entirety of this chapter is pretty much core memories. So much crazy stuff happened. I mean, what a crazy chapter. My word.
Very dense.
You hook up with Stormy, Gessler, and Truth, or escapees from Auditorial Island. They get sucked into that other place where they get this ship. They get this. I mean, dude, it's just crazy. This is just one chapter.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff coming together.
Yeah. Great stuff.
I appreciated Culp noting the gallows humor of the Malazan Marines on board the Solanda, and then how they were dealing with the stress of the situation. He noted they were hard men.
Yeah, very, very hard. I don't think he said he'd ever seen folks that hard. And it's like, that's kind of says something right there. I think that's why you and I always have this impression of these three in particular being super hard, but you got to be tough to survive with your sanity intact in a world like that. Even Felicin talking about the scars of sorcery. Just imagine seeing the everyday horror that you see. We mentioned the stuff going on here in Israel right now, this everyday horror going on here, but here you have magic. So it's a magnitudes thing. They're seeing upped. And so you got to be kind of tough and make yourself callous to survive with your sanity intact.
It's a thing that humans do. They adapt to the situation, I think.
Yes, very much so.
It's sad that some people have to live in a world like that where death and destruction are something that they have to become callous to. But to not do it, you risk your sanity, I guess, when you're put into those situations.
You do. I think you really do. Yeah, I think so.
And then if you do have to come back to a normal civilized world after that, that's when a lot of people can't adjust back.
Oh, just think about every Vietnam vet or every soldier that wasn't welcome back. I mean, they had to bury that stuff deep under.
Yeah,
they were just that's awful. They were not welcome. They think of how boring. And you don't want to say that, but that's really what it equals, in a weird sense. That it's like where your life is constantly threatened, where there is danger around every tree, every bush, whatever. It's like here. It's like you come home where things are relatively normal. How insane is that?
Takes you back to Deer Hunter a little bit.
Yeah, oh, I was just talking about that movie with KP this week. I said, "Have you ever seen that?" I said, "It's like the most depressing
Yes.
I've ever seen." But it was a Christopher Walken discussion, is what it was, and she hadn't seen it. I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's so dreadful."
Yeah.
It's such a dreadful ending to that movie. Oh, it makes me almost want to cry now, dude. It's awful.
Speaking of movies that are hard to watch but are good, have you heard anything about Killers of the Flower Moon? Have you heard anything about that?
Yes, the only thing I've heard right now is that people are getting in trouble for putting an intermission in this in theaters because it's like a 400-minute movie. It can't be 400 minutes,
It's
can it?
almost 3 hours, I think.
4 hours.
Yeah.
I think it's over 3.
Okay.
And that's only 100. That's only 180.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be for like 4+ hours, from what I understand, with no intermission. And so people are, the movie, because Scorsese is such a cinemaphile himself, he wants everything. I'm sorry, for everyone that's out there, that means a lover of cinema. Okay, he just loves cinema so much, he wants to preserve it, but that means preserving everything, and this includes subjecting an audience to a 4-hour film when I got about an hour and a half bladder. And I'm sorry.
You have 2 choices: stay hydrated or suffer.
Yes. And this is why I stopped going to the theaters. Is when me and my late missus would go to the theaters, here was the thing. She would fall asleep 5 minutes into the movie because, first off, let's face it, it's comfortable in the movie theaters. And I would always have to go to the potty at whatever the crucial moment is. I don't know. I'd always walk back in the theater like, ah! And you're like, what? You just missed the big whatever, the snap or whatever. I didn't see those in the theater, but you know what I'm saying. I might as well just miss the snap when I went to go to the restroom. So
yeah,
I'd rather watch things at home anymore. I can pause it when I like. Run to the restroom. I'm okay.
I'll tell you what. This reminds me. I haven't thought about this in a long time. I was in high school when Titanic came out.
Okay.
I think I was a junior. And I took a date to go see it. I distinctly remember that was a really long movie, and I had to pee at least half of it, but I didn't want to get up because I didn't want to miss any of it. I do remember that.
You weren't going to miss anything. I've never seen that movie, Kamraun, and I can tell you the whole movie. If you ever stick any historic scenario into any movie, it's always the same thing. It's a love triangle inserted into historic fact and into this historic thing. The Titanic's got to sink. Pearl Harbor's going to happen. The bridge is going to be too far, whatever. It's insert, you know what I'm talking about. Insert the
you're missing
triangle in this.
A great Billy Zane performance, Billy. And I know how much.
Was it Billy Zane?
Yeah, he was the bad guy.
Oh, my word. Okay, maybe I'll watch it on that alone.
I'm just messing
Mr. Zane, you have fans.
You're not
Mr.
missing
Zane, you
much
still have fans
with this movie. I mean, it's all right. I don't think I'll ever watch it again in my life.
Okay.
And growing up, I remember writing a report on the Titanic. So at the time, I was interested, but I know enough about it now to be okay with not seeing it. And I have not seen the edit that was released where James Cameron updated the constellations because he was criticized by Neil deGrasse Tyson for not having the right constellations in the sky for 1913 when the Titanic sunk. Yes.
Why? Yes. Why didn't James Cameron tell them what he says in South Park? James Cameron doesn't do what James Cameron does because he's James Cameron. James Cameron does what James Cameron does because James Cameron is James Cameron, is what he should have said to Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh, man. Okay, so we need to move on, but you just reminded me of something I just saw on Twitter the other day. It was a clip from South Park, a recent episode. Kathleen Kennedy of Lucasfilm fame was talking to Cartman. They're sitting in a diner. She's explaining why all Disney movies are bad now. And she was explaining that they have a secret stone locked up called the Pander Stone. And they drank too deeply from the well of the Pander Stone. And they started getting too much hate mail.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
And so she kept using
amazing.
The Pander Stone to fight the hate mail, but the hate mail kept increasing because there were so many racists out there. Dude, I was dying laughing. It was so funny.
Okay, I'll have to see that now.
I gotta find that episode and watch it. It's gotta be good. Oh man. All right. Moving along. I think you already kind of touched on this a little bit, but Felicity recognizing the impact to herself of the horror she witnessed over the last year. This kind of goes back to what we were talking about developing that callus and being mentally impacted. You survive, but there are deep scars there that you may or may not recover from.
And there's a lot of stuff. Every time I feel like you see her make growth from her, it's like she takes a step forward but takes 3 steps back, which is what it feels like with her.
Yeah. Fiddler waking up to Pust using the broom on his face was quite an interesting transition.
It's a great transition. Erikson's got a great sense of humor, dude. That last bit with Pust, where he's telling them all the secrets, but he's doing something else to him. Apparently, I don't think Pust is nearly as crazy. I'll comment on that in a minute. But I don't think he's nearly as crazy as we think he is.
You're probably right. It's probably partly an act just to unsettle people.
Yeah.
Or is it?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe you get driven to this at some point. Maybe you just get driven that way by worshiping Shadow.
Possibly. I mean, even Shadowthrone himself is always giggling and cackling, similar antics. I really enjoyed Fiddler getting annoyed with Pust and throttling him for the second time this book.
Yes. I like that this is a common reaction to seeing Pust. He makes you irritated enough that a couple folks just go right for the throat, literally.
Yeah. It's an occupational hazard for him.
Yeah. I can imagine like the Jerry Stiller kind of anger too. It's that, that irrational anger and just leaping across, just wanting to just strangle the life out of somebody.
Pust performing surgery on Fiddler's ankle. That would have been something to see with those sacred unguents.
Yes. And this is where that's what I was saying, that Pust may be crazy, but is he just merely crazy like a fox? Because I think we're starting to realize just how powerful he actually is. Doing this kind of microsurgery that this is better than this is as good as the null healing.
It's precision stuff that he was doing there, fusing all those bones together.
Yeah. It's wild, dude. Absolutely wild.
I really enjoy Pust thinking he's so clever, but his internal monologue is there for everybody to hear as he thinks he's thinking it to himself, but he's actually talking.
And that's, again, is he doing that on purpose?
I don't think so.
Especially since he revealed. Okay, I don't.
He's saying things like,
I think
I've been thinking too long. I need to pay attention to what is happening outside of. He's making statements that indicate that he thinks he's just thinking.
That's true. That is true. But the fact that he was able to lull all of them, and I think for some reason it's always particular when I think about Ikariam and Absalar, who I think should have some kind of defense against that. You would think left over, but is apparently not. She's just as easy to get past with a guy who knows what's going on with Shadow. Apparently,
yeah. Maybe it was just the things that a body can do that she picked up, like all the mental connections for moving your body in certain ways. Maybe like the neural pathways, right? Maybe she didn't get some type of innate resistance to this type of stuff.
Yeah, she just got the. It's kind of like Assassin's Creed. These people, they're the bleed effect. She has the bleed effect.
Yes. That's a good analogy. It was great finding out that the magnificent gelding lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely amazing. I'm so happy this horse is still alive.
Yeah, that's a heroic creature right there.
Absolutely. I mean, it put itself between, as it's dying, basically, running from exhaustion, it interposes itself between Fiddler and the monster coming for Fiddler. I mean, what a horse. What a majestic beast.
There's a pretty big revelation that the Azath may be gateways and connected to each other.
That's a crazy reveal there. I like that.
Yeah, it's like Stargate.
I like the fact that and especially even knowing what we know about these places, we still don't know anything about these places. Erikson has been very parsimonious with his reveals on these Azath things, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's been letting it trickle out, just picking it up little by little.
So that's a lot of big info real early in this series that I think I've overlooked.
The final thing for me was Pust mesmerizing everyone with his words, including Mappo and Ikariam. Yes. A very generous display of his power.
Yeah, it is scary. Now, did he just confound them or did he do something else to them? I'm curious.
Good question. All right, Billy. You got any final thoughts before we drop off here?
Yeah, I do. Just what an amazing chapter, man. 3 weeks of sheer awesomeness. And this is what a great chapter. I just cannot wait for next week.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. Great job tonight.
Yeah. Great episode, man. Very much.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thank y'all. See y'all next week.
We thank you all for joining us today.
Again, we really like to thank you for taking the time to be with us. And we've had a really great time talking about the topic today.
If you would like to support our show, you can find us at HorseFrogProductions.com, where you can find our Patreon link. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description.
And if you'd like to contact us through email, it's at contact@horsefrogproductions.com.